Life is a winding road, no telling where it goes. Driving through days and nights, won't stop for traffic light.
Hi, I am Joelle Fawcett, and I am the founder of The Soul Method. Here, our mission is to be your guide, to heal from the past, be at peace in the present, and create a future you love. I grew up in a small town just outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And growing up, I had a really small family. It was just me and my sister and my mom and my dad. Now I have a really large family, lots of step siblings, aunts and uncles, cousins. I have 2 beautiful children, and I am raising them with their father, and I'm incredibly grateful for the friendship that him and I have today. And I also have an amazing boyfriend who is my partner in crime and such an amazing support to me. Growing up, I didn't have this life mission of creating a self-help method of some kind. I really feel like this came to me over the past several years of being on my own healing journey. So I'll share a little bit of that now and where it came from. Growing up, I'm laughing because some of you probably knew me as a child. I was larger than life. I had a really big personality. I still do. I was a little bit like Tigger from Winnie the Pooh, like a bowl in a china shop all the time. I was a total tomboy. I loved jumping on a trampoline, running around barefoot in the summer, building forts. I kind of lived in my own little fantasy world. And because of that, I really didn't subscribe to the social norms, and I really just didn't care what other people thought about me. I really was that kid who I would rather do my own thing by myself than compromise in some way to be accepted by other people. I also grew up dancing. I was a ballerina for about 20 years. And I did play one sport when I was a sophomore in high school, and that was tennis. And it was bad. I quit after like 3 months. I think I'm kind of a klutz unless I'm on stage, so either way. So growing up, I really just didn't have a care in the world, and I really loved my life. And over time, and I think some of you may be able to relate to this, how over time it starts to be impressed on us as children that we need to subscribe to the societal and culture norms of what's around us. We're taught that there are certain things that are right and certain things that are wrong. And if we want to be accepted by our tribe, we need to do the right things. So over time, that wild child with unbrushed hair and dirty feet started to become tame. And it became more and more normal for me to ignore my own heart and instead do what everybody else around me wanted so that I would be accepted and loved. And so I did all of the right things. I went to school, I got decent grades, I went to college, got a degree. I looked and looked for love, and when I found a man who would love me, we got married. I really want to emphasize that I said yes every single step of the way, right? Like I said yes to getting married. I said yes to a conservative lifestyle and religion for our household. I said yes to 2 beautiful children. I said yes to a part-time business that my husband at the time and I owned together. And I said yes to giving up my career to be a stay-at-home mom. If you had asked me at the time if I had any regrets or if I thought I was doing the wrong thing, I would have said absolutely not. Like, no. These are all the right things for my life. However, some of you may be able to relate to the fact that we can only ignore the screaming of our heart for so long. And over time, I started to feel off. I started to feel really emotionally disconnected from people around me. I just genuinely felt unhappy. And I started to think about how I was as a kid and wonder what happened. Like, where did that little girl go who ran wild and free and really didn't have a care in the world? About a decade passed, 9 years. So I'd been married now for nearly a decade, right? My children were 5 and 1 years old. And I knew something wasn't right. So I tried to fix it, like we usually do. At that point, I decided to dive into all the things that I thought were the right things. So, I dove into my religion at the time. I dove into my business. I started a new workout program. I started a new diet program. And can we just acknowledge the fact that every single time a woman feels like she's out of alignment, we decide that changing what we eat is gonna fix it? Like, I don't know where this nonsense comes from, but I've noticed it to be a theme. I think it's kind of hysterical. So either way, I did all the things, right? I went full throttle into everything that I had committed to. But the problem is that it didn't work. It got worse. By the end of that year, I was completely depressed. I really didn't want to live my life, and I started on the path to some pretty bad habits. I stopped eating regularly. I would binge on sugar, and I drank far more alcohol than I should have, far too regularly. And I felt really lost. I also felt pretty ashamed. I didn't really know what to do because I looked around at my life and I had all of the things that I had said that I wanted. And I was sitting there completely confused as to why I wasn't happy. So that spring, which is 3 years ago in March, I had just gotten back from a weekend program in Philadelphia. And that Monday, entering my real life, it was like the universe fell around me. The sky shattered and hit me like a wall of fire. It was like the skin-tingling shock of jumping into frozen water. I knew in that moment that of this life that I had built, of this life that I had said yes to, I wanted none of it. And I was terrified. I knew in that moment that I would have to start to unbury myself. I would have to take off all the things that I had said yes to so I could find my no again. So I started with the physical. I started cleaning up my eating, clean up my alcohol, got that together. And I was honest with my husband at the time. I left our church, I left our business, and that was among the most terrifying choices of my life. It rocked my relationship. I don't know if any of you have ever read the book Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert. But in there, near the beginning, she has this line where she says, "The only thing more impossible than leaving was staying." And I never really understood what she meant until this moment of my life. So I'm incredibly grateful for the timing of the universe, because at this point in my life, two amazing women entered, and they would be the women to guide me home. The first was my Reiki master and teacher, and the second was my life coach. One by one, they helped me discover all of the emotional triggers and blockages and peel them away like onion layers. My life coach also helped me discover how I had given up my alignment to something outside of myself and had started seeking safety and worthiness and love in those around me instead of within my heart. I became incredibly curious as to how I got here. It legitimately is crazy, to sit here and say, I said yes to all of these things and then, whoops, just kidding. And in the process, I had some people say that I had been lying the entire time. But the reality is that if you had asked me back then, I genuinely thought that I was doing the right thing. I had no concept of the misalignment until that Monday in March 3 years ago. And I sounded like a crazy person. I began to see how in my misalignment of myself, I had, over those years of being married, built up so much resentment towards my husband at the time and my children. And internally, I blamed them for the way that I felt. I wouldn't have admitted it at the time, but knowing what I know now, I would have said that it was their fault. I would have said that it was the universe's fault for the reason that I was where I was. It was circumstance or something else. And the longer I was on this path, working with my Reiki master and my life coach, I began to see so much of this same hatred and resentment in people around me. And I felt compelled to guide people out. And I knew if I was going to do that, I would have to guide myself out first. 3 years later, I can sit here and genuinely say that I love the life that I've created, that I love every single relationship that I have. And while I am no longer married, I am incredibly grateful for the relationship I have with the father of my children. And I'm really excited about the future that I'm creating. And it's a lifelong process. We're never done. It's never over because we're still here. We're still doing this thing called life. But I can genuinely say that when life happens, I'm able to approach it from a place of peace instead of from a place of chaos. So the story isn't over, but the story was never really about me anyway. The story's about you. Do you see yourself in my story? Do you wake up every day excited to live the life that you're creating? Do you enjoy every relationship that you have? Or do you feel frustrated, anxious? Do you feel checked out or resigned to another day, another day, another day? I created the Soul Method to help guide you back to peace. Because like I said, life is never going to stop coming at us. But life is different when we can handle each stride from a place of peace and power rather than from a place of emotional chaos. And that's my commitment to you, is that this method will be your guide back to peace. Please don't misunderstand that I'm saying you're going to have a perfect life. Perfect does not exist in any stretch of the imagination. What I can promise is that if you're brave enough to do the work and dive in, that this method will allow you to emerge a restored person. Thank you for letting me share with you today. My role on this journey is to be your guide, not necessarily a friend. Healing rarely comes without facing a few hard truths along the way, and my commitment to you is that I share each and every one of these from a place of love. So if you're ready, let's go.